Good afternoon, everyone. This session is about water security, knowing what we need to know. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Mohammed Al-Madfa'i, Deputy Manager for Environmental Strategy and Policy Coordination at Environment Agency, Abu Dhabi. Dr. Madfa'i. Fast.
Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is our honor to have you today to discuss a very important issue globally and, to be specific, a very important and vital topic in this region, which is water security. In the beginning, it is essential to ask ourselves, what is water security? Water security involves the sustainable use and protection of water systems, the protection against water-related hazards, the sustainable development of our water resources, and the safeguarding of water functions and services for humans and the environment. Water security has always been a societal priority. In order to achieve basic water security, it is important to both harness the productive potential of water and limit its destructive impact. To capture this duality, water security can be defined as the availability of an acceptable quantity and quality of water for our livelihoods, ecosystems, coupled with an acceptable level of water-related risks to people, environments. Yesterday, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, emphasized that water is more important than oil to the UAE. So water security is crucial to our existence. Today, I will be speaking about the water context in the UAE. We have one of the highest per capita water usage in the world, which is about 560 liters per person per day. The UAE, as other countries in the GCC, has three main types of water, which are groundwater. We abstract about 2.4 billion cubic meters per year of groundwater. We have a low recharge rate, which is about 150 million cubic meters per year. We use desalinated water mostly for our domestic use, and we produce about 1.7 billion cubic meters per year. And we use recycled water, mostly in the amenities sector, and we produce about 500 million cubic meters per year of recycled water. There are many issues associated with water security in the UAE. To name a few, the high population growth, rapid urbanization, rapid economic development, high water consumption rate, and a rapid groundwater depletion. Many regions in the world face the same issues. As there are issues related to water security, we acknowledge some challenges which we are working to overcome. Some of them are the availability of accurate and updated data, the demand-side management of water usage, the high salinity level in the Arabian Gulf region, the desalination capacity in the Gulf region, the availability of gas and fuel, and the biodiversity and habitat loss in the Arabian Gulf region. We can ask ourselves, how does data affect water security? Data is key to any advancement, and without proper and accurate data, decision makers might not be able to take the right decisions in order to sustain our water supplies. The sharing of data and the generating of data sets that are accessed by everyone is important for sound decision making. For sound decision making within this context. As you all may be aware, the MENA region is one of the driest areas in the world, and its main concern is water scarcity. Therefore, partnerships between government agencies, non-government agencies, and the private sector nationally and regionally is very important to promote the issue of water security. Data sharing and updating within the MENA region is crucial in order to overcome the challenges that the region is facing with regards to water security. Without proper data, proper policies will not be implemented properly. We need to consider water scarce security variability over both space and time. We need to therefore share data on predictions of water change under climate and social changes. This will help smart planning for not only water security today, but for future generations to come. I will give you an example about the Abu Dhabi Food Control Authority, where they banned the subsidizing of the Rhodes grass due to the depletion of our groundwater. Another case study we can talk about is the UAE Federal Water Strategy and the Abu Dhabi Water Master Plan. Without proper data, it can't be implemented properly, thus making water governance ineffective. In conclusion, and before we start our panel discussion about this important topic, I want to say that water, food, and energy security are all linked together in the UAE, in the GCC, and the MENA region, and we should look at it all together in a more comprehensive way. Thank you all for listening.
After this very informative introduction from Dr. Madfa'i, I would like to call our distinguished panel to join us. Will be just here. We are still waiting for Her Excellency Dr. Maryam Al-Shannasi, but not to waste time, we shall start with the members of the panel who are here with us. I would like to introduce Dr. Asma Al-Qasimi, Director of the Arab Water Academy. I introduce Mr. Mick Wilson, Senior Program Officer at the Division of Early Warning and Assessment at UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. Dr. Muhammad Dawood, Manager of Water Research Department at Environment Agency Abu Dhabi. And I don't have to introduce Dr. Muhammad Al-Madfa'i, he is already famous among you. I would like to start with some remarks actually. The topic of our session is water security, knowing what we need to know. And believe me, we need to know a lot. The report on Arab water, which my organization, the Arab Forum for Environment and Development, AFID, published in 2010, and it will be available for you on the stage after we finish. That report showed that as early as 2015, and not 2025 as previously thought, the average per capita share of renewable fresh water in the Arab region will fall below 500 cubic meters per year, which amounts to severe water scarcity. Now, 500 cubic meters as average for the region is misleading, because in 2015, 3 years from now only, this will be 26 cubic meters in the UAE and 5 cubic meters in Kuwait. Those are the limitations of nature. The quality of water the quantity of water on Earth remains the same quantity since the age of dinosaurs. It is expected actually to become less in this region with the effects of climate change, while population continues to multiply and we have one of the highest population increases in the world. The option left for many countries in the Arab region is to fill the gap by desalinating seawater using highly expensive and often polluting methods. Still, as we have to know, still, the quantity of water exploited for personal use in a country like Kuwait is the highest in the world, exceeding 540 liters per person per day. Still, golf courses flourish in some of the driest countries of the region, with each golf course consuming water which can support the survival of 16,000 human beings. Still, dairy products are being produced using feed irrigated by fossil groundwater, with one dry country in the region on top of dairy exporters. We need to know that every 1 liter of milk requires 1,000 liters of water to be produced. We certainly need to know that it is not sustainable to export fossil water. We need to know also that while agriculture consumes almost 85% of the fresh water in the Arab region, irrigation efficiency in this region is just 30%, which means 70% is lost. We need to know that other than rare examples like Abu Dhabi, 60% of wastewater is not treated. And of that amount, only 1/3 is reused. Time does not allow giving more details. As I told you, details are abundant. They amount to a catastrophe in the region, and you can find more in this report, which will be available here. AFID's most recent report, which was produced last month on green economy in the Arab countries, also we shall make it available, proposes transitioning to the green economy as a prescription to achieve sustainability in all sectors, including water. Here are glimpses. Shifting to sustainable agriculture practices is expected to result in savings to Arab countries of between 5 to 6% of GDP as a result of increased water productivity and protected environmental resources. This amounts to $114 billion annually. The report estimates that Arab countries will need to allocate at least 1.5% of their GDP annually to investments in clean sanitation, water infrastructure, innovative water efficiency, and recycling technologies in order to meet the expected rise in water demand. This amounts to $28 billion annually and will create jobs in both rural and urban regions. A reduction in average per capita consumption of electricity in Arab countries to the world average, and in some places like Abu Dhabi, it is one of the highest in the world. If we reduce it to the world average only through energy efficiency measures, this would generate in the region $73 billion annually. A 25% reduction in energy subsidies will free over $100 billion over a 3-year period. AFID report further argues that if Arab governments commit to greening the construction sector, spending will have to increase by at least 20%, resulting in additional investments of between $23 and $46 billion. Besides savings due to increased efficiency, these additional green investments will create 10% more jobs. The willingness to pursue a green economy agenda provides a window of opportunity to initiate fundamental re-examination of current public policies in Arab countries. However, green economy requires the transformation from the prevailing virtual economy, primarily based on sales of raw extractive products like oil and phosphates, and speculation in real estate and financial markets. Transformation from this virtual economy to the real economy, focusing on sustainable production, which alone can protect the natural capital and generate long-term jobs. So, with this introduction, which complements
Thank you.
the speech of Dr. Al-Madfa'i, we can start our debate here, and we are lucky that each one of our panelists has a specialty in one field of water, so we can distribute the roles. And first, I would like to know from Dr. Asma Al-Qasimi, who is director of the Arab Water Academy. And the Arab Water Academy, as you can know from its name, is involved in training water professionals, in training policymakers and practitioners in the Arab region. I would like to know her view first about what she heard from us, and then about the prospects for capacity building and the needs for capacity building in the field of water in the Arab region.
Thank you. Thank you, Najib. First, I am glad that you covered all the scary numbers, which means that I may have a little bit more time to talk about what we know as far as possible solutions are concerned. It is a fact that in this region, the Arab region, we have maybe around 30% less than what would be needed for a minimum water security. It is also a fact that the gap between supply and demand is widening for all the reasons that the previous speakers have talked about. We know that by the year 2012, or let's talk a little bit further, by the year 2050, so I would give a big number, we know that the water shortage in our region will be around 200 billion cubic meters. This represents an increase from the 16% that we have today in the unmet demand towards close to 50%. So we do know that we need to be a little bit more proactive into finding solutions to these challenges. The good news, though, is that we have made some good progress in understanding what our options are. So we know that we would need to look into three broad categories. First, we would need to increase productivity in agriculture practices, but also increasing the water reuse. Second, looking into expanding supply. So we know that desalination is already playing an important role, especially in the Gulf countries, with some of the Gulf countries covering most of their around 70 to 80% of the water gap with desalination. But again, desalination is expensive, energy intensive, and has environmental implications. The third option is the demand management. Demand management in domestic and industrial water, but also getting into maybe some more difficult choices as far as irrigated agriculture is concerned. Definitely, the solutions will have to be a mix of these three approaches. And the question will be, what is the optimal mix? It will depend on the specificities of each country. But again, this is where data is important, where having good data and information is crucial for guiding us towards what kind of options we should move towards. We need to know what kind of data we need, but also what kind of data we don't need, how to get it, and most importantly, how to get it into the decision-making environment. And here I would like to share with you a recent example. This is a recent study that was commissioned by the World Bank a couple of months ago that looked into a tool for decision-making that is based on the cost of available water and has looked into the possible scenarios of Arab regions so they could bridge the water gap. And it's very interesting to see that the study concluded that actually most of the Arab countries might be able to bridge the gap, the 200 billion cubic meters that we were talked about, with less burden on the finances, and it was the number put forward was 0.5% of the GDP compared to the 1.7% that you mentioned earlier, Najib. But there is an important prerequisite for that to happen. And the prerequisite is to be able for our countries to put in place the right policies and institutions. And this is really bringing me into the very important thing that we need to know about water security today, is that water challenges are increasingly shifting towards policy and institutional issues. And this has a tremendous effect on both the quality of the management and the governance of water. It is true that water reforms will need both political champions and technical champions. And this is bringing me to the role of my institution, the Arab Water Academy. The Arab Water Academy was established in Abu Dhabi in 2008. It is hosted by the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, and our work focuses on how to enhance the skills, the knowledge of the most senior decision makers, the most senior water professionals, in such a way that we would be able to catalyze water policies and strategies that would bring short-term, high-impact value to the water sector. So we base on our work on bringing new perspectives on demand management, on institutional reforms, on looking into the environmental and financial sustainability, but also how to think about water in a broader manner, how to integrate policies that deal with water with crucial sectors such as energy, agriculture, health, and trade. So our programs so far have covered water governance. We've also looked into utility reforms. We've looked into private sector participation in water sectors. We've looked into climate change issues. And we have our flagship program on water diplomacy. Because as you may already know, not only do we face problems with water scarcity, problems with water management, but on top of everything, we have around 60% of the resources in the region that are shared across international borders, which means that we really need to put in place mechanisms for cooperative management in such a way that we move from possible conflicts towards making the most benefits out of sharing our common waters. So my final word would be that solutions are possible, that we do work in such a way that we could provide the knowledge base for the implementation of these solutions, and that innovation will be key. I mean, innovation not only in science and technology, but innovation in management, innovation in financing, bringing the services to the poor, innovation in awareness raising, and innovation in changing behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you, Asma. It was very informative about what you are doing and your vision. And just I would like to remind of one main conclusion of our water conference, which you participated in, of AFID Water Conference last year, that the main renewable source of energy in the Arab region is efficiency. We waste a lot, that with efficiency, and efficiency measures are much cheaper than creating new resources. So until now, our stress is on supplying more water, while not enough pressure is putting on efficiency, treatment, and reuse. And that's very important. It is a fraction of what we need to invest in generating new water through desalination, etc. If we put it in efficiency, we shall reach the same place. And one thing which we found, as you know, it met resistance from many, that we are not reinventing the wheel. Water pricing is one main measure, because people, when they feel it in their pocket, they will spend less. And we said even you can increase salaries if you say people cannot afford. You can increase the salary and increase the price of water and electricity so that you feel that if you save, you can keep more in your pocket. With this, I would like to know from Mr. Wilson of UNEP, as he comes from international organization, also active in this region. How can international organizations help to resolve water problems?
That's a very broad question, Najib. How long do I have? 45 minutes? No, to me there are some very clear answers to that question, particularly in the context of the current, the summit that we're participating in at the moment. My background is not in the water domain at all. I'm in fact an information systems person, but conversely, the challenges and particular opportunities of the water security issue are, how can I put it, they are an attractive challenge that I think an organisation like the United Nations Environment Programme can not only address on behalf of the world community, but do so in a way that then has the trickle-down effects that increase the resilience, the capabilities and so on at both regional and national levels. There is, for example, a water security initiative that's coming up through the Eye on Earth process. We'll hear a bit more about this tomorrow. But given that we are talking about data and information, and given my own background here, the areas where I see an organisation like UNEP strengthening the domestic and regional efforts towards improved water efficiency, water utilisation efficiency, improved ecosystem management and so on, in the information sphere is primarily around the data and the standards by which data are made available, the protocols by which countries are able to share them and move them between jurisdictions in ways that then enhance integrated management across international boundaries, as you were saying, across ecosystem boundaries, as is going to be increasingly necessary as the stresses of climate change kick in, and across, in a sense, sectoral or philosophical boundaries, where the priorities for water utilisation and so on are being set at the political level, the tensions between agriculture, industry, recreation, domestic use and so on and so on. So as the Eye on Earth Summit comes to its conclusion tomorrow, one area that myself and UNEP are investing continued effort in after the summit is to take forward that special initiative on water security that will be particularly addressing the issues of how operationally, not in terms of platitudes, but how operationally to enable countries to better bring their water-related data, which is, by the way, not only data about water, that includes data about the ecosystems, for example, that provision water, that purify it, that make it available as ecosystem services. So it's an incredibly complex information management task that in many cases is beyond the domestic capacities of developing countries, but with an organisation like UNEP acting as a focus for a combined international effort with multiple stakeholders and so on, I believe that there's a huge opportunity then for those experiences and benefit in the information management section to be brought down to national and regional policy makers in a demonstrable way where the benefits are realisable, measurable and ultimately sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for this. I think one main role of international organizations also is to provide the scientific data, reliable data, to help countries generate reliable data which can help them to build the right policies. And then, to be frank, I mean, what I noticed, I was with UNEP when I was a child, 30 years ago, and then 35 years ago. And what I noticed, it's often with international organizations, in most cases, or let's say often, they try to please countries, to please regimes. And then sometimes we feel it is common interest of the agency and the country to show that things are going well. What I see it, I'm not out of the system. I'm not completely out of the system. I still work with agencies, but I feel sometimes that agencies should be very blunt, more frank with governments, to tell them when it is wrong, not to shy off to say, I mean, if it's not good to build an artificial island, to be blunt to say this is not good.
You're looking for a response to that?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I think I heard three questions there, and I'd like to just go past one of your early points there where you started talking about providing data about issues, and then you changed it to the ability of countries to produce data that expose these issues. And on that second point, I agree entirely that there are certainly roles for UNEP and other agencies to facilitate that data gathering, data monitoring systems. More importantly, though, I think our role is to increase the level of scrutiny with which citizens can understand those data. You want to see opinion coming down from UNEP as to whether or not making man-made islands is a good thing, or desalination is a policy thing. That's fine, but UNEP has to play a diplomatic role. We are beholden to the member states. But on the other hand, if the citizenry are themselves becoming a voice in this debate, if they themselves are better able to argue propositions as to what directions national policy development should take, national development policy should take, then that's an even stronger voice, I believe, than having a little agency like UNEP come along and say, no, don't make islands.
Thank you. I now go to Dr. Mohammed Dawood. We have worked for many years with Mohammed. He is a specialist in the water sector, and he is with the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi since quite some time. And I shall make use of this, of his experience in the field. And he has wrote a lot. He has contributed to most AFID reports, by the way.
Thank you.
We know, as I mentioned, and as you have noticed, I don't try to please anybody, but it is a reality that Abu Dhabi specifically is a bright example in the region for reuse of wastewater, treatment and reuse. And I know in many countries, which most of you don't know, many countries in the region, they treat the water and dump it in the sea, including reverse osmosis treatment. I mean, one country, they treat the water to the extent that you can drink it, and then it is thrown in the sea because for cultural reasons, they don't want even to use it for irrigation. It starts to change. Abu Dhabi is a bright side of this thing. You recycle, you treat most of the water, you reuse most of it. If you can give us an idea of treatment of wastewater, reuse, how it is used.
As you mentioned, Engineer Naguib, actually one of the most important issues in the water cycle or one of our experiences that we, within the last 20 years, we already focused more on the supply side. Nowadays, we started to take a chance, or we give more attention to the demand side management. And the demand side management, you have a variety of options depending on the challenges you are facing within your country. And that challenges, it varies between countries to countries. The arid region is not like the wet region. We are not facing the same like what they are facing in Canada or in Thailand or in other regions, and in Africa, for instance. So one of the most important part is considering all the available resources that you have. In Abu Dhabi Emirate, we have only 3 resources: groundwater, desalination, and the treated wastewater. Unfortunately, up till now, we are discharging 60% to the environment of the treated wastewater, which is tertiary treated wastewater and cost a lot of money to collect it, to treat it, and then we can distribute it and reuse it. It is a tertiary, it is a good quality water, it could be reused. And we have also various options for reuse of treated wastewater. At present, we are utilizing about 40% used only in green landscaping, road verges, and some parks and gardens recreation area. But we are suffering, or we are facing a lot of challenges in the agriculture sector, in the forestry sector, mainly depend on non-renewable groundwater aquifer system, which is a shallow aquifer system. It is deteriorated within the last 20 years. The water is depleted, and the water table is falling down by 50 meters in some areas and 40 meters. So we have to rely on other resources like treated wastewater. Recently, we start to implement the first advanced treated wastewater plant in Abu Dhabi Emirate to provide about 300 farms with very good quality water according to the WHO standards, FAO standards, and even with the local standards. The problem, or one of the challenges that we are facing, is the financial of the sector of the reuse of if you would like to reuse the treated wastewater, here we are centralized the treatment plants, mainly that there is a big central treatment plant which serve a lot of residential areas and cities or surrounding areas. If you would like to use it, you have to convey this water or to divert it to where you would like to use, to the agriculture or forest, which is far from these areas. Financing or visibility, studying the visibility and to assess the visibility, sometimes it's not on our side. They said you can rely on the local groundwater better than divert this water or to move it to a very long space. However, nowadays we find that no, because 1 cubic meter of groundwater from the shallow groundwater aquifer, which is brackish or saline, costing us more than the desalinated water, even if I already produced it locally, but it is brackish, affecting the infrastructure for irrigation system. The soil, it's affected, the fertility of the soil affected because of the accumulation of the salts on the topsoil. The rate of the growth of the plants itself and the yield of the plants itself is very low. So better to use another source, and we find that it is visible to use the treated wastewater and to convey and to transfer it to where I can use. We started this initiative on 2 levels now. The first one we started on using it in the agriculture sector for production of vegetables and other field crops. And we established the first one, which produced now 6 million imperial gallons to provide 300 farms. One of the challenges is the public accessibility or acceptance for this, for using treated wastewater. And we did a survey for the users or our stakeholders and the end users. And when we said it is wastewater, they don't accept it. When we said we did another questionnaire was only changing to recycled water. And 60% of the people started to accept it. Mm-hmm. When we started to learn them more about this kind of water or this type of water, they started to accept it gradually. Also now we have a clear instruction to improve the water use in the agriculture sector by using new technology for irrigation, by using greenhouses, not using the open traditional cultivation. Also, we are using now the treated wastewater. There is another initiative now to recharge the aquifer system in some areas which we can recharge, either to prevent the seawater intrusion or to be reused later on for native species like forestry, which is mostly native species, plants, or for agriculture itself. So there is a lot of variation for reusing of treated wastewater, which we are looking for, and there is a lot of initiative now, and we are using it at present for greening landscaping. However, we are now even try to minimize the recycled water use to save it for agriculture sector by changing from green landscaping to hard landscaping and also using salt tolerant and drought tolerant species. We are propagating now in our nursery something like 80 species, which most of them are salt tolerant. They give us the same canopy of greening canopy. They give us the same colors and the flowers all the year. And they use 1/3 or even sometimes 20% of the use of present use on the green area. So there is a lot of variety we can play with, as Engineer Naguib mentioned.
Thank you. No, Muhammad Madfa'i first, he told me I don't want to talk in the panel. I talked already, but I won't spare him.
Okay,
He will have to talk. So
okay, Ustad Nabil, I have one comment.
I have a
I will come
question
to
for you.
Yes, I will come to your question, but I would just want to comment on one thing from this discussion. You know, everything that's being done is important, but everybody is missing one very important aspect of the whole thing, which is the public awareness. Without the people's buy-in, no policy can be successful. People have to be aware that water is very scarce, and people are not taking the issue very seriously in the region. Last year in the GCC summit, the GCC leaders put water on the top of their agenda as it is a serious matter that needs to be addressed. However, nobody took any serious measure to talk. So at the same time, we lack a regional approach and cooperation when it comes to water, although all of us are linked to each other. And number two, our societies, they are overusing their water and not paying attention that if one day this water stops, what will they do? So it is, you know, I think these are measures that people have to be talking about and addressing at the same time.
Yeah, I have a small comment, you know. I mean, I live partly in Europe, partly in the Middle East. And I mean, my wife is Dutch and my children are Dutch and I am half Dutch.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think, Arabs think that Europeans are different creatures. It's not like this. The difference between us and them is that they have laws which they apply, you know. So we are not reinventing the wheel. The way to, it's not that they are more aware. You have to pay for water, you spend less.
Yes.
I have to pay for electricity, I have to spend less. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So when you say awareness, I say awareness number one should be for officials in Arab countries to have good laws, and awareness for normal citizens would be useful so that they can establish good power to pressure the officials to change the laws.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have to have legislation which is applied to all, which enforces laws.
Yeah.
But now I go back to the question which I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
That wastewater treatment actually is not demand management. It is good, it's good, but it is another source of water. We are, instead of throwing wastewater, we are treating it and using it again. It's actually, we are supplying more water. What I have heard from you, and that's why I'm asking you, I gave Kuwait as an example in my remarks. Frankly, I didn't know. I mean, Kuwait is 540. I said over 500. I didn't know that UAE was 560 per person. I want to know what measures have been taken, I mean, to reduce this. It is unbelievable, actually. It's unbelievable. And when I say policies...
I think we have first to understand why we are using...
No, I mean, let me give one example. I mean, we are not, I say again, we are not reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
In Canada, it is 340.
Yeah.
And they consider it very high because in the UK, it is 120. But every study says that in Canada, it is 3 times more than the UK because the price of water in Canada is much less than the UK. So, I mean, did we do something to reduce the consumption?
I will leave what we are doing now as in terms of initiative to Muhammad, but I would like to justify why we are using high per capita water consumption. First of all, we haven't what we called it in the... I studied in Holland, by the way, and the United States. In all the European countries, they have what we call it complementary source, which is the rainfall or surface water. In Abu Dhabi Emirate, as well as in GCC countries and the arid region, we have in this complementary source. We are irrigating the root verges from the desalination sometimes. All the backyards of our villas and shabiyat areas is irrigated with desalinated water, which is accounted as part from the water balance or the desalinated water balance. all, sometimes more, 20% of the landscaping in the, which you can see here in the streets, the green streets, are irrigated with desalinated water. Nowadays, we have some initiative with RSB. RSB is the Regulation and Supervision Bureau in Abu Dhabi Emirate to classify how much is used indoor and outdoor. If we are looking for the indoor use, it should be something like 300 liter or even less. Sometimes in the flats it's 180, 200, which is comparable to other countries. But the problem for us is the outdoor use. In terms of initiatives, we have many initiatives. We have the water saving campaign. We have many RSPs. They have the water wise campaign, and they have many campaigns. I do agree with you that regulation is very important as a tool to enforce the people to use the water wisely. But the problem, sometimes you have to understand that you have challenges enforcing the law itself. Also, Mohammed can focus only in another initiative for water saving. Like there is also a lot of initiative now we have. New irrigation technology for landscape.
You know, first of all, you have to know where the number 560 came from. If you cannot compare 560 liters per person per day, although this is the official figure, however, comparing it like to the UK is the household. Our household here, if you're comparing an apartment in Abu Dhabi compared to an apartment in the UK, our apartment usage is about 160 liters per person per day, which is close to the world average. If you're gonna put the agricultural sector with the recreational sector, the number will be huge, which is 560 liters per person per day. At the same time, Abu Dhabi, the Environment Agency, in cooperation with the Regulation Supervision Bureau, put a strategy for the usage of recycled water. So we are putting measures, we are putting regulations in place to use the recycled water. Right now, we use 60% of our recycled water and 40% goes back to the sea. But I'm sure in the future, coming years, we won't have any water going back into so all of it will be reused again. We will reuse it most probably in the agricultural sector, in the amenities sector, and maybe in households as well, when we recycle the gray water as well.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, when we say the figures for personal use, they don't include agriculture, except in your home garden. So it is different. And I gave the examples of Canada and the UK for this purpose, because after doing this many times, we get trained, because in Kuwait we had this remarks. And then when you compare Canada to the UK, because in Kuwait, just to make a long story short, they said we are a hot country, so we have to spend more water because we get sweat and we have to be cleaner. So UK and Canada, they have the same climate, and we are not reinventing the wheel. The Canadians say we spend more because the cost of water in Canada is less than the UK. Now, I go back to one question to, do you agree?
If I can have a small intervention
Please,
here. I'm taking off my UN hat now and putting on my national hat.
National hat,
because I come from the other driest continent on the planet, Australia. Now, I don't come from the driest part of the driest continent. In fact, my area is very green and lush and whatever. But the beach where I used to swim as a child, I can no longer swim there because there is a $3 billion desalination plant under construction, about to go into production, at a time when the dams around the city of Melbourne are now reaching 70% full for the first time in 10 years. And the reason I'm telling this anecdote is, over my lifetime, I've watched this whole cycle of, in a sense, water security policy go through about a 360-degree rotation. When I was a kid growing up, everybody had rainwater collection tanks. By the time I was at university, nobody had rainwater collection tanks. They were no longer legal. The government, the state authorities forced their removal. Now they're subsidising people to put rainwater collection tanks back in their houses. Meanwhile, as far as grey water use goes, up until about 4 years ago, it was illegal in Australia to recycle grey water from household laundry or whatever for things like irrigating one's garden and so on. You could buy the technology, but it wasn't legal to use it. Now they're subsidising people to use it. And But the point I'm trying to get to here is that none of the issues that I hear being discussed here are uniquely local to the Arab world. And a place like Australia has, in 30 years, probably still not arrived at a fully functional, endorsed model for how to deal with water stress, to deal with water security. And so, however much longer this debate can go on, perhaps it's going to be another 30 years until viable solutions are found, or maybe not. Maybe there are.
Do you have
lessons
figure
to
of
learn.
consumption per capita personal?
I don't have it to hand.
I don't have it now actually, but it will be good to debate, because good to compare with Australia, because the climate in some places is
Well,
it is
and
also dry and
and I think we shower more frequently than British people anyway. So
I don't come from Australia, but I could provide some insight in this, because we visited Australia, and I have in the room His Excellency, the Minister from Yemen, who was with us. Actually, we visited Australia as a program of the Arab Water Academy to see how Australia has been able to fight drought and get, more importantly, into the reuse of non-conventional waters. We visited desalination plants, we've looked into recycling, into irrigation efficiency, and we were struck by the numbers that were given to us for the water consumption in Sydney. It's below 150. And how this happened, this was really interesting to see. It did happen because there were intensive campaigns of awareness for people. So they actually got into the other extreme of the spectrum. They basically scared people out for not using water. And now we were talking with the CEO of the water utility in Sydney, and he was saying that he's having trouble because now he cannot sell his water anymore. People are just not using water. They got into this, and this is what I was mentioning earlier. It's beyond awareness. It's really getting into a change of behavior, looking into water in a totally different way. We need to change the way we look at water, we deal with water, and also we value water. Because anything, and this is bringing to the issue of pricing, anything that has no value, you don't put a value to it. So it's very important that we do get into these challenging and sometimes difficult issues, but today it's a must to, as I said, look into water differently.
Yeah, I mean, you always need combinations, mixes of solutions.
Yeah,
like what you said at the beginning, I mean, you don't have one solution to face water problems. You have mix of solutions. Also, you need awareness, policies, including pricing, together to reach a place. And I come back to you. We started with you. I start again with you. I mean, now our session is what we need to know about water. Do we know now what we need to know about water? And what we know, is it translated into policies? We cannot claim we know nothing. But I mean, are we translating what we know into policies? And if not, why?
So I think one very important thing that we need to know is that we cannot keep going the way we've been doing business with water so far. I mean, things have to change. The statu quo is not an option. And what you also need to know is that we put numbers and figures and we get data on what we should do. But it's very important also for us to quantify the cost of inaction. If we don't do, what will this cost? And when I say cost, it's not only about financial resources, what it will cost us in economic and social development, what it will cost us for the environment. So this is something that we really need to be totally and often reminded of, is that we are in a scarce region. There is a huge competition between sectors that are vital, human and agriculture, and we tend to forget the environment. So there is basically no water for the environment, and this is something that will backfire on us very soon. So I think that it is very important that we engage today into this integrated vision of water. You've talked about the integrated management of water resources as a change of paradigm, less of supply and more of regulations and more of looking into how to deal with water in a softer way. For long, we have been very good into engineering. We've developed excellent engineering solutions. I mean, we have some of the best treatment plants in the region, but this is not enough. So today we need really to link this with other very important issues such as economy, sociology, ecology, and so on.
I'll also go back to data. This conference is about data. And one of the main pillars of this conference is AGD, Abu Dhabi Global Environmental Data Initiative. I was lucky to be with Mohammed Madfai 10 years ago in Johannesburg when the initiative was launched. I want to know from Mohammed, from the two Mohammeds, or one of them, from EAD. 10 years after launching AGD, and here we are talking about water, do we have more useful data about water compared to what we had 10 years ago when AGD was launched?
Since we launched AGD, we put a lot of effort to look at our indicators. How do we measure the indicators for water, other than water, biodiversity, climate, many priority areas within the environment. Abu Dhabi managed to launch the State of Environment Report, which is the first State of Environment Report in the region. And it encourages other countries in the region to launch their own State of Environment Reports. It tells you where you are and where do you want to be. Another outcome we're looking at is looking at the Environment 2030 vision, what our aspirations are with regards to the environment in our key priority areas. So in general, data is important. 10 years ago, we had data, but we don't have as much data as we have today. And I don't think, and I'm sure in the future we'll have more data than we have today as well, since there are technological advancements, the easy access to data, the collection of data is going to get more, it will improve. And in the end, we need to share our data, share our experiences to other countries so they can follow as well.
Thank you, Mohammed. Now, before
I have to comment
before
about
I give the last round, I would ask the backstage helpers, can you hear me in the backstage, to bring us the reports which I left for you for the audience, because I promised the audience to provide them. If you can put them just at the tip of the stage here. So backstage. Now we continue. Yes, Mohammed.
I have just a comments about the data here. When we start, now we did start here our program for water resources in Abu Dhabi in 2003. He started a little bit before that, 1 or 2 years, but there was no initiative or activity. It was just one employee working on this program. And when we started the program in 2003, we find that the data, our problem in terms of data, that the fragmentation of the data between many agencies and institutions and in different formats, even the responsibility was fragmented between many institutions. We did an assessment report to know exactly what is the responsibility and what is the jurisdiction of each institution in Abu Dhabi Emirates, and we find that more than 20 institutions or departments involved in the water, either in the production or the use. And there is many fragmentation and the gaps between the responsibility of each sector or department or institution. What we did, we prepared a report to the Executive Council, which appointed EoE in 2005. I remember in 2005, Environment Agency have been appointed to be the sole agency responsible for managing the water resources and developing the management plan. After that, we started to develop one of the most comprehensive database. We called Abu Dhabi Water Central Database. And we did collect all the available information from these institutions and sectors, either maps, reports, Excel sheets, Microsoft Office Access, whatever available. We collect all this information. We have now, at present, we have one of the most comprehensive central database in terms of water resources. And all the supply, data about the supply, all the data about the demand sectors have been populated and stored in this Even so, we have been linked this database with a supply-demand management model and a decision support model. Nowadays, even we have a portal website which allows the public researchers and the users to use some of our data to access some information and the maps and some maps. And even now, recently, a few months back, we launched the first online permitting applications that if you are an owner of a farm or whatever you would like to drill well, you can apply online, you can track the process of your permitting process and what is the problem, and even the information about this wells after drilling, we are collecting it from the contractor and the consultant, populating to our database, and the users, they can use it later on. So we have nowadays in Abu Dhabi, we have a very good comprehensive database. We have a lot of information that allow us to manage our resources better than 10 years back.
Well, now we came to the end of our time. Does anybody have something urgent to say?
I have two things to do. I'm putting my international hat back on, and I'm going to respond to your earlier challenge about the international organisations coming down and being critical, okay? Now, I'm going to be critical towards Arab states. I'm also going to be critical towards my own country. And the context is, I'm answering your question, do we have more data now than we did 10 years ago? You were asking it in the context of the Emirates, and I'm going to answer it globally. There has been an international effort called the Global Environment Monitoring System for Water, GEMS Water. It's been functioning for over 25 years. It's got 80 years worth of data from some countries. The least performant, the least reporting parts of the world into this global water quality database are my own country, Australia. It's only got 4 stations that report, and the second big gap in the map is the Arab region. Now, my plea is, if your domestic data generation and management capabilities have improved this much over the last decade, and if that story, as I suspect, can be replicated in Qatar, in Kuwait and so on, then here is a plea from the international community to start releasing those data into an existing, functioning international exchange mechanism that will then help improve our understanding of where water of appropriate quality is available for ecosystem services, for agriculture, for human consumption. So that wasn't quite being critical, but it is a plea.
Well, I shall end here. Anything to say, Asma? I shall end here. I mean, I think we all agree we are in better position now than 10 years ago, let's say. We know more, but we know at least that efficiency in water is a priority, not only increasing the supply. The experts around know this. We have to push this into policies. Data is important. I give you one example, real example, from Saudi Arabia. Few months ago, I was in Riyadh presenting the AFID water report at the Ministry of Water and Electricity in Riyadh. And then I happened to be coming from Amman, Jordan. And then in Amman, there was big campaign in all media saying, with a package of milk, saying fresh milk from Saudi farms on your table every morning. So Saudi Arabia is the biggest exporter now in the region of dairy products. So while presenting our report, I showed the ad and I told them, look, every liter of milk you export means you are exporting 1,000 liters of water which is needed to produce the feed from fossil water. And then we were lucky that present was the minister and the 3 members of the Shura Council in Saudi Arabia who were members of the water committee. And I am happy now that it is very seriously considered to enact a law not to ban production of dairy products, but to say that for every equivalent of 1 liter of milk exported, the producer has to import the equivalent on 1,000 liters of water in the shape of feed. I give this example to say we have to translate our figures into policies to reach somewhere. And I'm just coming from Kyoto in Japan, and I don't claim I am creating what I am saying now. I heard it in Kyoto. It's a Japanese saying. It says, vision without a plan is daydream, but a plan without vision is a nightmare. We should avoid both, because we cannot spend tens of years preparing our plan, especially in the field of water. There is a sense of big urgency. We have to act on the spot. What I propose, and I think you agree with me, to work in parallel, working on long-term plans, but at the same time, working on very fast measures, because the situation is catastrophic. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to us, and thanks a lot for the panel.
Thank you.
And